Jane, is from Rathfarnham and has worked as a librarian in UCD for many years. She worked firstly in the Architecture and Planning Library at Richview, where most of the library's map collection is held, and it was there that her interest in maps began. Tonight's presentation will feature a range of free websites where historical maps of Dublin can be viewed. Without further ado, I'll pass you over to Jane.
So thanks to the Kilmacud Stillorgan Historical Society for inviting me along. Everyone loves maps, and that's why we're all here in this room together. And I'm going to show you some websites and so forth as we go through the presentation. Just to say that it is so much easier now than it was 10 years ago to find maps online. So much so that when I started preparing this presentation, I thought I'm not going to find enough, but in fact I found too much. So I have left out entire pieces of information, but it's just wonderful how many different websites there are, and it would be great if everything was on the same website, but they're not. There's different platforms, different types of viewers, different websites. So I'm just going to show you a range of what is available. So I'm just going to start off with the Log Anam website, which is the Place Names Database of Ireland. And its website is a great site just to show some of the admin boundaries for the country and overlaid on a current map background. So when you're on the browse page here, you can click on any of those radio buttons on the right, and you can bring up that type of boundary for the whole country. So it's very handy to be able to do that. Then when you've clicked on the boundary that you want, in this case I've decided to go with the townland boundary, it'll open the whole map of Ireland, and you can just zoom in on the map to the area of the country that you're interested in. And when you get close in, you can see the various townland names. And then when you zoom in and click on the actual townland name, it just shows the actual townland itself without the other townlands. So the townland that you want just shown on the map. And you can zoom in then to see the under map, or the base map below the townland outline. And not to have the people of Kilmacud left out, here's the townland of Kilmacud. So I decided in the end just to kind of concentrate on maps of Stillorgan and in very close around Stillorgan. So just to remember that a lot of the maps that I'm showing you obviously cover the whole of Dublin. I've just zoomed in on Stillorgan for the sake of tonight's presentation. The next site that we're going to go to is back to 1760 and John Roke's An Actual Survey of the County of Dublin. And this is on the Virtual Record Treasury of Ireland website, which was launched in 2022. And it's not too difficult to search, especially if you have a name like Roke. So you can just put in Roke Dublin and search in the search box for that name. And at the top there, put the link to the actual John Roke map page. So when you open on that link, you get brought to a page about the John Roke 1760 map. And from there, you click the next blue button that I've shown there at the bottom. So John Roke, I'm sure half the room knows, is, and I will tell the other half, is a French cartographer who spent 6 years in Ireland, where he produced several maps, including County Armagh, Kilkenny City, Thurles and Cork City, and then lots of maps for Dublin. When you're on the landing page for that John Roke map, you just need to click on the View Digital Content button, and that brings you to a page with the map. The map was made in 4 sheets, so you need to just arrow through the bottom of the screen to get to the actual map that you want. And map number 4 covers the southeast section of the county. So that extends to the border with Wicklow and includes the city of Dublin, and Dalkey, Dunleary, Bray, and of course Stillorgan and Kilmacud. When you've moved along on the arrows to get to map number 4, then you click on View in Full Screen, and then you can zoom in on the actual map of the part of Dublin that you're looking at. So it does give quite a bit of detail there. So Roke's map proposed to show, among other features, main and crossroads, lanes, paths, hedges, hills, bridges, brooks and ponds, gentlemen's seats and houses. However, it is known from other contemporary reports and estate maps that Roke's map does have inaccuracies, but it does include many place names, and of course, apart from being very decorative, it is a very useful map to have from this early period of 1760. So when you're on that kind of a map page, an easy way to save an image from it is just to click with your mouse, click right with your mouse, and that will open the Save Image As. And once you click on that, you can download a JPEG and save it that way. So staying with the Virtual Record Treasury of Ireland website, it has lots of other maps, and I've got a link in there to their online map room, which has over 6,000 maps in it. And they've been collated or gathered from all these other archives and libraries around Europe to replace the many items that were burnt and lost in 1922 in the Custom House fire. Another of the maps that's in the Virtual Record Treasury of Ireland website is John Taylor's map of the environs of Dublin. Again, at the top there, this link will bring you to the information page about John Taylor's map. And when you're on the information page, you click on the View Digital Content to see the whole map. And then on the map page, you click on the bottom blue button there, View in Full window. There's an image of John Taylor's map from 1816 showing the location around here. And again, shows roads and rivers, gentlemen's houses, domains, woods, churches and castles. And to quote J.H. Andrews, the eminent cartographer, with all its faults is clearly a major historical source as well as a work of art. So that's 1816, and then about 40 years previously, another Taylor, this time George Taylor, no relation of John's, had with Andrew Skinner surveyed the roads of Ireland. And in order to do this, they raised about £2,000 from a number of Ireland's gentlemen and noblemen. And this was enough to do the survey with about 25 assistants, create engravings and print the mapping. In the book, Stillorgan appears on map number 140 with the various houses owned by nobles and gentlemen along the route and named on the map. So obviously, I guess to our minds, the map is upside down because I've marked Dublin and it's at the bottom and Shankill is at the top. So it's kind of going north-south the wrong way around from what we would think. But by zooming in on the map, you can see the houses and the churches there more clearly, and as well as a house name. They've included the owner names for some of them. So you can see I've circled there Stillorgan Park, owned by Lord Carysfort. And the images and the drawings themselves on the maps of the little houses, they're just pictograms. It's not somebody went out and drew a picture of Stillorgan Park House. They're just pictograms representing the house and a pictogram representing a church. So you can see that from the legend which is included on the Taylor and Skinner maps. Now, I shall move on to the next Taylor. So many Taylors. This is a map, a sketch of the environs of Dublin by Major Alexander Taylor, the older brother of George Taylor. And he was a military engineer, a surveyor and a cartographer. And he planned surveys of over 2,000 miles of road in Ireland between about 1805 and 1815. So we can assume that the roads on this map are excellently done. On this map, and the link there at the top, will bring you directly into the map. The houses are shown in more precise locations compared with the 1717 map. You can see again that the houses are all represented by an identical type of pictogram, but some house owner names are included on the map. For example, I've circled there Sir Thomas Lighton at Merville. So that's on a website from South Dublin County Council, but they just have the JPEG on, so it's nice and handy to get into and look at. This is another web page from South Dublin County Council called Mapping South Dublin County in Time. And at first glance, it looks as if this might be outside our zone of interest, as clearly it's the area within the orange boundary line that's being highlighted. However, if you click on the layers symbol there over on the left-hand side of the page, we will see that there are maps or layers of interest relating to Dún Laoghaire-Rathdown. So you click on that little icon that looks like 3 sheets of paper, which is the layers icon, and that opens up the menu, and from there you can choose the layer that you want to view, and you do that by just clicking in the checkbox next to the layer that you want to view. So not all of the maps that are listed there are visible for Dún Laoghaire-Rathdown, but some of them are, and one of them that is visible is the William Duncan map of 1821. I think somebody in Dún Laoghaire-Rathdown needs to make this kind of a site for Dún Laoghaire-Rathdown. You click in the checkbox for the map that you want to see, i.e. 1821, William Duncan's map, and then that map will become visible. And you can see that's the area around Stillorgan, Kilmacud, over to Dún Laoghaire. And Duncan's map, it does show quite a lot of place names and individual houses, villas belonging to the gentry, churches and streams. That slide just shows the Stillorgan area on the Duncan map, a bit more zoomed in. So one of the useful things about looking at the Duncan map on this website is that you can use the transparency feature to relate the historical Duncan map to the current mapping. So the way you do that is when you're looking at the checkbox for Duncan, you'll see 3 little dots next to his name. You click on the 3 little dots, it brings up a little menu, and you click on transparency, and that opens a little box with a slider on it. So you click on the little tag that's on the slider to drag it along the slider, and as you go from, if you're at 0% on the slider, you only see the 1821 Duncan map, and if you're at 100%, you only see the modern map. But if you're somewhere in between, you can kind of see the two, and you can relate where you are now in current times and find the same site on the Duncan map. So that's a handy feature. So, from South Dublin and to a very specific selection of maps, I'm going to go and show you the David Rumsey map collection, which is one of the largest collections of digital maps in the world. 138,000 or so maps on his website, and everything you can download and use for free without any copyright bother. And this is a very nice website to use because all you do is in the top box, you just type where you're looking for, and then you click on the word go, and you get a selection of maps in this kind of gallery format. So you'll see all sorts of maps there, geological maps, railway maps, maps and atlases, tourist maps, all that kind of thing. So to see a larger version of one of those maps in the gallery, you just click on the little image of the map to show a larger image of the map, and there it is. So the map I clicked on is this 1837 map, produced for the Society for Useful Knowledge, which was a society founded in London to produce inexpensive publications, including maps, as a way of spreading knowledge and broadening education for the masses. So on that page, you just use a nice straightforward plus button to zoom in on your map, and that's a close-up version of the environs of Dublin from 1837. So even though it's published at a scale of 1 to 85,000, to give a context to that, a Discovery Series map is published at 1 to 50,000. The level of detail that you can see when you zoom in is really quite good. So that's 1837. And again, David Rumsey has a georeferencer feature. So if you look at the map and you see view in georeferencer, you can click that and that will let you see the older map overlaid on newer mapping. Now clicking that brings up the whole of the 1837 map overlaid on a current modern map. And again, it has that slider feature. You click on the red button and move it up and down the slider to get different levels of transparency between the old map and the new map. So there's just two images with the slider set at different positions, or the little red dot button on the slider set at different positions to show you what it can look like. So when I was introduced by Muireann, the UCD Digital Library was mentioned. I do have a preview of our new viewer, which I can show you. And so it'll have a map like this, where a background map like that, where all of the maps that are available in the collection will be shown with these coloured circles, which you can just zoom in on them. When you zoom in quite close, you'll see they turn into green circles, and you can just click on one of those green circles to bring up a page about the map in question. So, unfortunately, there are no maps in the digital collection for exactly Stillorgan, Kilmacud, but people might be doing research in other parts of the country or other parts of the county. So I just thought I would show it to you anyway. And then when you're on that page, you'll be able to just click on View Item, and from there download the image and see the whole map in that format. This is just a selection of samples of extracts from various parts of the country, showing the type of information that is on these maps. So I've got Ennis and Loughrea and Wicklow Town and Cork, and you can see that they show the names of barracks and ball alleys and the interiors of some public buildings. And they also have useful information like boundary lines and townland lines. There are quite a lot of abbreviations on the map, and the maps don't come with legends, but a very useful source of information is the recently published book from Paul Mulligan, which includes all of the abbreviations and has a glossary of terms, and also has a table of scales used on Irish Ordnance Survey maps, and a table of place names changes, and all other additional information. So these are not online yet, but they are due soon on the digital library, the revamped digital library. And these are the Dublin parish maps for 85 parishes surveyed between 1863 and 1867. The Memorial Atlas of Ireland, which is online, shows the whole county with the parishes all in different colours and all named. And you can zoom in on that map and then see exactly where your parish ends and begins and what parish you should be looking at. So, for instance, the parish of Stillorgan is published on 2 sheets. That's the index for Stillorgan parish. So it's published on 2 sheets. Some of the parishes, like there's one parish that's published on 35 sheets. I think it's Lusk or Skerries or somewhere. So just 2 sheets. This is the composite map of Stillorgan, which is the parish map from 1866. And that's one of the two actual sheets from Stillorgan. The buildings on the maps were coloured either carmine or grey. Carmine indicated stone or slate roofs, while grey was used for buildings with thatched roofs. Water was represented by the colour blue, roads and foreshore by buff, and the interior and exterior walls of public buildings were in deep red. And there's an image of the Taney parish map, just to show an additional sample from the collection. Okay, so the next website that we'll look at is the National Library of Scotland's, the fabulous National Library of Scotland, which has an amazing collection of digitised maps, and even more amazingly and happily for us, has Ireland's Ordnance Survey 6-inch maps included, and they're at really high quality. So it has both the first edition 6-inch maps from around the 1840s and the 6-inch mapping from around 1900. So the link there brings you to Dublin sheet 23, corrected to 1843 for the Stillorgan area. And this is Dublin sheet 23, revised in 1907 to 1909. And you can see, obviously, that they're really crisp. There's no watermarks. And what I've circled there in red, which might be of interest to some people, are contour lines. So for anybody who's got amazing eyesight, the 100 there marked on the map represents 100 feet above sea level. And the National Library of Scotland also has this side-by-side feature where you can compare two pieces of map from the both dates, so the 1843 map on one side and the 1907, 1909. So when you click on that link, it will just bring you directly into the side-by-side feature. It's very nifty. And another collection that the National Library of Scotland has on their website are the 1 inch to 1 mile mapping for the whole country, which is kind of a handy scale just to give an overview of a larger area. And so we go from Scotland to France. It's great how other national libraries have digitised Irish maps. So Gallica is the digital library of the National Library of France. And one of the maps which they have on their website is this Dublin map 31. Can't quite see the bottom of that, but when you're looking at the bottom of the sheet, you'll see the word zoom. So to get into the map, you just click on zoom first, and then you can use the plus button or your mouse to wheel and zoom into the map. That's a very clear map of the area around Stillorgan. And they do have other Irish maps in their collection. Well, for Dublin, the last 6-inch scale map produced by the Ordnance Survey was in the 1930s. So to find an online copy of this map, you can go to the Map Warper website. So I think a handy way to use this website is on the home page, just click on at the top tab where it says Find by Location, and that brings up a map of the whole world. So you just zoom into Europe, zoom into Ireland, zoom into Dublin, and as you keep zooming, on the left-hand side, maps which are available for that part of the country will appear, and then you can click on the one that you want. So this has the 6-inch sheet from 1936 to 37 on it. It's a little bit fuzzy when you first open it, but if you zoom in, the mapping image becomes very sharp and clear. And it's great to have somewhere that has the 1936-37 map. Now we are in the late 1930s, which is about 90 years ago. So I guess that's where historical maps talk should stop. But I just wanted to show some of the street maps which you can find online and which are a great source of information showing the development of Stillorgan and the environs in the second half of this, the 20th century. So the University of Wisconsin, of all places, hosts the American Geographical Society Library Digital Map Collection, and it has quite a good collection of Irish maps within it. So one of these is this 1953 street map, and when you click on the link at the top there, it brings you to the page about the 1953 street map, and then to open it up, you just click on the double arrow in the top corner of the sheet, and this map is really very sharp and clear and shows the area brilliantly in that, for that date, 1953. So you can see the built-up areas show the housing, and churches and schools and convents and public buildings are all shown in black. And the library in Princeton hosts the 1972 street map. So when you open the link, the default is that you see the north side of the city first. So you just need to click on the thumbnail image for the south side of the city over there on the left. And then that brings you into a view of the south side of the city from 1972. And you just click on the full text there at the bottom right corner. And when you zoom in on that, a very nice map from 1972. I think the Stillorgan Shopping Centre is just about shown there. So the dark grey areas kind of show the estates and the houses and the built-up estates. And lastly, I just wanted to mention the Internet Archive. So the type of book that you might expect to find in the Internet Archive will be something like this 1787 book by Richard Lewis, and both Kilmacud and Stillorgan are described in it. Kilmacud apparently had very refined air back in the day. Anyway, that's a link to the 1787 book, and it is the kind of thing that typically you might expect to find in the Internet Archive. But you can also find, if you do a very basic search for, say, something like just typing in Stillorgan Dublin, you'll see it finds a range of publications, the old and the new, and including street maps. So some of these you will need to borrow as opposed to just clicking on it and opening straight away. So that's kind of their way of getting around just people getting recent books for free. But it does mean you have to sign in with your email address and create a password, and then it lets you borrow something for an hour, and then it just, if you log out, it puts it back on the shelf. But what you can find in there include the Bartholomew Dublin Street Finder from 1994, and you can also find the Dublin Street Guide from the year 2000. So I guess gradually more will be added. So folks, hang on to your street maps. They're a great way of finding information. In the Ordnance Survey's now named Táilte Éireann own online store, you can view a really nice current view of the area. And just out of curiosity, in UCD, the athletics track was moved within the last 2 years, and it does show it in its new position. So they obviously do update it quite regularly. And anybody can go into the OSI store and look at a map like that. You don't have to buy anything. You can just look, and it's very nice. So that was a look at some of the websites and places that you can find maps. And for a general listing of maps, I'm here, so I might as well plug my page. We have a list of arranged in 3 sections: maps of Dublin, maps of individual maps from individual counties, and then another page with maps of atlases and series which cover the whole country. And I'd also like to mention Brian's page, the Dublin Historical Maps, where he's categorised them into different eras and you click on one of those eras or date ranges, and that brings you up another map where you can choose to view other maps within that website. It's a good place to start looking as well. And I am done. Thank you very much.